Hello, fellow flyers. Some of you may have seen my post where I'm posting a video about EFT or tapping for migraines and just replacing it with fear of flying. I've been seeing a lot of posts and I've been talking to quite a few of you, and I haven't been able to see all of you yet, and it's of course free of charge, but I do have other things to do. So I thought I'd do a video for you guys specifically to help you out when either you're about to fly or you're at the airport or whatever, that hopefully will calm your nerves and maybe even get fear of flying altogether, like it did for me some 25 years ago. So if you're unfamiliar with the technique, I'm going to go through it with you now to show you how to do it, and then we're going to run through a few exercises that you can repeat, learn and use yourself when you're at the airport, before you're at the airport, when you're on the plane, and so on. Okay, so the first place we start is the tapping point here. It's called the karate chop point, and we tap with 2 fingers or 1 finger, whatever you feel comfortable with. Okay, that's the first point. The second one is on the crown of your head, and I use like a woodpecker type thing, just right on the top of the head here. Then we move to the top of the eyebrows right here. Okay, then it's the temples, then it's under the eyes, the fleshy part, then it's just under the nose on the top lip, then just under the bottom lip, then we move on to the collarbone part here, and then finally, ladies, the bra strap, or gents, under the armpit right here, just tapping on the side like that. Okay, so let's try it out, shall we? You follow along and just copy me and say what I say. The most important thing is to gauge your anxiety or fear level or terror level, however you like to describe it, okay? You can change what I say to fits whatever you feel, okay? So let's assume you're a 10 out of 10, 0 being no fear, 10 being extreme fear, okay? And we're going to go with that. So let's start, shall we? Tapping on the karate chop point, just repeat what I say. Even though I have this fear of flying, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. This fear of flying, 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 this fear of flying. Excuse me. Okay, now we gauge again the fear level. And for the purposes of this video, I'm going to say we've dropped to a 7, from a 10 to a 7. And now we do a slightly altered round. Here we go. Even though I have this remaining fear of flying, so keep repeating it, even though I have this remaining fear of flying, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. This remaining fear of flying, 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 this remaining fear of flying. Okay, so I'm going to say that we've now dropped to a 3. You may be a 5 or a 2 or 0 maybe, who knows. So we're going to do one more round, and I'm just going to add a little bit in as well that you can either choose to say or not. Okay, it's up to you. So let's try one more time. Even though I have this remaining fear of flying, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. And I forgive myself for anything I may have done to contribute to this. And I forgive anyone else for anything they may have done to contribute to this. This remaining fear of flying, 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 this remaining fear of flying. Okay, let's assume we've gone to like a 1. Okay, we've taken care of that part of it. Now, some of you, like people I've worked with before, have different aspects. Like it's the approach to the airport. It's walking through the portal into the plane. It's the sound of the engines, a very common one. It's the takeoff, you know, that lurch. Or it's the air below me, or the space below me. Or it's the coming down for landing. Or it's turbulence. So you can use this technique for all of those aspects. Okay, we just repeat the same technique. So I'll do 2 of them, but you can interchange and change the wording to suit whatever works for you. Okay, so I'll quickly do 1 round on both of these other aspects, and I'm going to focus on the sound of the engines and turbulence. Okay, here we go. Even though I have this fear of the sound of the engines, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. So, even though I have this fear of the sound of the engines, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. This fear of the sound of the engines. 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 Okay. So remember to gauge your anxiety level. And then on the second round, always on the second round, you switch from this fear of the sound of the engines to this remaining fear of the sound of the engines. And you just keep repeating the process until you've moved from a 10 down to a 0 or a 1 or a 2, whichever's manageable. I'll point out this doesn't always work, but around about 95% of the time I found it works perfectly well. Okay, we'll do 1 more. And that's for turbulence, okay, which is, it still gives me a little bit of discomfort, but I feel like I've felt much worse lurches on trains than I have turbulence in planes, except for once, and I'm still here. Okay, here we go. So imagine you're on the plane and it's starting to tremor and the seatbelt light goes on. Okay, that's always a trigger I've found. All right, here we go. Even though I have this fear of turbulence, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. This fear of turbulence, 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 this fear of turbulence. Okay, so measure your anxiety level again and then repeat with this remaining fear of turbulence. Now, the only other issue a lot of people have is they sometimes feel quite self-conscious if they're on the plane and they start doing all this stuff. Now, if you if you find that that's a little too much, there's two things you can do. One is when you're actually going through the process and trying this out, you'll probably find that one of the spots you really like more than all the others. Some like it under the eyeball. That's really comforting. My one is the collarbone. So I can discreetly just do this without saying anything, just thinking it, and it calms me down. Okay. Yours could be under the armpits. You can discreetly do that. Or you could, just like you're scratching your head, you could just tap like that, if that's your favorite spot. But what you'll find that one of your tapping points is your favorite, and just focus on that. And if you can't handle doing that, if you're still too self-conscious, you can close your eyes and imagine tapping it, that point. It can be as equally as effective. Just close your eyes, do the tapping. In fact, you can do the whole sequence. Close your eyes and imagine you're doing it, because imagining it is just as powerful as physically tapping, I think you'll find. Okay. Well, I hope that's covered enough for you, and I hope it helps. It may not, but most of the time it does. I'd love it if you tell me how you get on, maybe in the comments below. I'd love to know your experiences and if it worked and how it works. If it didn't work at all, maybe it didn't. I hope it does. I've had really positive responses, and it worked for me. And I couldn't get on a flight. My honeymoon flight to Cairo, I couldn't get on it. We didn't go on our honeymoon. It was heartbreaking. Anyway, do let me know, and happy flying.